Hey guys, I'm Akshat Shah. I'm part of the Code Labs game dev team, part of the Code Labs internship by Code Day. And our project this time was an Uno game. And our mentor was Mingyi Jiang. He's a freshman, he's an incoming freshman at the University of California at Berkeley. And yeah, I'm a rising junior at Allen High School in Dallas, Texas. And a fun fact about me is that I love to whistle.
Mm,
Yeah, and we
Hi,
have Anna Chung and Anthony Alvarez on our team.
hi, I'm Anthony. I am a racing junior based in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I worked part in this internship as well.
Hi, my name is Anna Chen. I'm a rising senior in Southern California, and I was also working on this internship project.
So we were tasked with making a web-based multiplayer game, and some of the things that making such game required was having separate game rooms to host different games, having the client side of the game render everything, having the server side manage the game logic and store it and store all the data of the game and having real-time client server communication so that everyone's screen can be the same and having accessibility over the web because it's a web-based game, of course.
Some of the technologies we used for this project were Python, which we used to write the back end of the code. And then also in the back end, we used Flask and Socket.io. And Socket.io was used to connect the front end and the back end so we could have communication between the client and the servers. And on the front end, we use JavaScript, HTML, and CSS for web page.
Our team consisted obviously of the three of us, Anthony, me, and Anna. And Anthony worked on mainly the game logic, the back end stuff in Python and Flask as well. So kind of wrapping everything together with Flask and actually having the web application. And I worked on the client side code and rendering the actual game for the most part. And Anna worked on the Flask and Socket IO. So that was actually establishing the real-time communication with the client and server sides and the pregame management, which included the queuing and rooms part of the game before the game actually starts. Yeah.
Okay, the project was split between the front end and the back end. The purpose of the front end was basically to render everything got from the back end and to get user input in reaction to that. So when it was a player's turn, they could do their thing. Um, the backend handled the server side stuff and the game logic so that it could receive and send all the data it received so that everyone's screen was the same all the same at the same time and synced up. And the game logic was made this with the socket IO stuff so they could communicate clearly and the backend could know what to do with the information it received. And the and all of that was laid on top of the Flash framework to make the web app work.
Now we're going to go over some of the code we wrote. So the code that put people in rooms consisted of a queue in the back end. So I wrote a queue in Python, which was just an array. And then when people connected with the connect function, so up there on def on create, we created a function that would sense when users connected, and then when they connected, it would display a message on the client side saying that it would search for a room, and then it would append that user's session ID onto queue, which again is an array. And then once the queue reached a size of 4, which were the sizes of how many players that would be in a game, it would activate the make room function. And what that function would do is that it would move those users who were confirmed to be ready into a room. And then it would send a message back out to the client asking if they were ready. And then that ready event would prompt the users to click a button that would ask them if they're ready. And then that button's on script.js because that's on the client side. So, oh wait. Oh yeah, I actually check HTML.
Oh yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
The script is inside. It's embedded in HTML.
So yeah, so the ready function. So once it got a signal from the server side, the client side would take in that ready signal. And then if you see right there under ready, there's the creation of a button, and then that's the ready button. And then we would append a function to that. So basically once the user clicked it, it would send a ready signal back to the server, and then that would be a callback. And then after the server got that, it would know that now that the 4 users are ready, it is time to start a game. But they have a 60-second timeout for that, which can be seen by the timer that's created, that's highlighted right now. So once those 60 seconds are over, then the page would refresh, because if the 60 seconds were over, it meant that not all 4 users had pressed ready, which meant that either A, they weren't ready and then they're not active and they're not ready to play, or B, they have disconnected, and then on that it would refresh the page and they would be put back into the queue. So now we're going to explain some of the game code and game logic.
Go down to the game function. Okay, so most of the game logic is put inside the game function, which first of all, it receives the room and an array of players that are going to be in that room. And with that information, it makes an array of player objects made from the pairs in set array, and also declares a few variables to iterate through the main game loop. Before it gets to that, it makes each player draw their 7 hands and then sends a hand signal, which is an array of strings sent over. So the hand signal gives a command to render their hand on their front end, and a child function within the game function is the process move function, which takes in a card and first removes it from the hand where it came from, and if it's an action card, it handles whatever action it made and then places it as the pull card. And if it's not an action card, it just places the card at the end. You can go down now.
And so when the client actually initiates or sends a signal that someone has played a card, right, the server will process it with this function, right, because it gets this socket IO communication right here with the play signal, and it'll basically run this function right here, play card, and the info will be passed on. It'll basically be the card info, and it'll basically update the entire board, I guess, or like the game, and then it'll also update it on through process move, it'll update it on all the clients' sides. And now Anna can also explain how you're trying to use a recursive function or like a while loop to do some things.
So the plan was that once the 4 users received a ready signal, it would start the game. So we made a game definition, and then we were going to use a while true loop to run that game. So basically the game would continue to run until it ended, on which it would break out of the function, and then it would display some message talking about the results of the game. However, when we were testing this and running it, we realized that there was an error, and that while true would somehow mess with the rest of the code. And then it would have it so that the code or the game code would start to run without the 4 users confirming ready, or even without the 4 users being ready at all. So to remedy that, we started writing a recursive function, hoping that that would stop that infinite while true loop that seemed to be executing before the 4 players confirm ready.
Yep. Yeah. So that's our code. Yeah. So what did we learn through this 4-week Code Labs internship? So all of us can definitely agree on these 3 points for sure. First one being the WebSockets and servers. So all this was a lot of technical knowledge. It was much deeper, much more kind of, yeah, it was deeper than just the basic understanding of how clients and servers work. And we also learned how they communicate, everything from IP addresses to how Socket IO works and how we can actually implement it in projects, including this one. And so WebSockets and servers, I guess more so the client-server communication and everything like that. We would have obviously done some future editions, which we'll talk about later. Another thing that we did, which is not just the technical knowledge, is also Git and GitHub, which is very important for collaboration, right? Source control and version control. So we use that significantly, and we obviously have a GitHub repository for all our code. And then we also use LiveShare, which is an extension in VS Code, which is basically the Google Docs for coding. And so that allowed us to run code and work on it together very efficiently and effectively, because we were able to change parts of codes simultaneously. And yeah, we were also able to share a live server, in which we actually ran the game on all our computers, our personal computers, from a distance. And yeah, another thing that we realized was that web development can be hard, but the can be should be emphasized. Yeah.
Some of the future plans and improvements we have for our app is actually finish it and have it working properly, because at the moment it's only working partly. We would also like to have it deployed, but not for commercial use, because we don't have the intellectual property right to the game. Also, we would like to have some like graphics for the cards instead of just a string of text representing the card, and also an option to host a game, join a game that's being hosted, or join a random game online for the game matching. And also having a game timer, so you know how long a game has been. And in general, just much cleaner code.
So here is some of our contact info in case you want to get in touch with us. And we all really, really want to thank Codeace for providing us with this really awesome opportunity to work on a 1-month internship over the summer. We know it was such a huge effort to run, and a lot of hard work and amazing people really put a lot of effort into this so that we could be provided with this really great experience and opportunity to work on something on this scale.
Yep. Thank you so much. Yeah.